This is a stock pigeon. This is a tuned pigeon. And this is what you clicked for. So welcome to my updated tutorial for BeamNG Drive on how to hack cars. In this video, I'll be showing you step by step how to essentially break physics. You'll be learning the basics of modifying BeamNG's code with the sole purpose of making your car do this. And yes, we're using the pigeon. This video is split into chapters to make it easier for you to follow along, and as in my other tutorials, I have tried my best to be as easy to understand as and with this out of the way, I will be covering just the basics of modifying the funny code. To actually learn how to do this and not have to rely on an Italian man with goggles, you will have to mess around with the code by yourself. That may sound intimidating, especially if it's your first time, but do not fear. If you ever get stuck or can't figure out what the f you're doing, you can either search the internet or even better, ask someone who knows what the f they're doing. In the description, you'll find a couple useful links from the BeamNG wiki, as well as the link to the official BeamNG Discord. And now, get ready to install some people. You will have to install WinRAR, which I'm pretty sure most of you already have, as well as Notepad++. And you can find both of the download links in the description. Technically, you could use whatever text editor you want, even good old Notepad if you really hate yourself. But in my opinion, Notepad++ is the best one for what we will be doing, as it is very simple to use and it's like 10 megabytes. And with the programs now installed, it is time for the So before doing anything, make sure that BeamNG is not running and that you are solely staring at your desktop. Let us begin by opening File Explorer and going here. If you bought the game from Humble Bundle, I have no idea where here is, and if you pirated it, the first thing you want to do is back up the vehicles folder. Just copy it, paste it, and leave it there. When you eventually mess up, just replace the files in the vehicles folder with the ones in the backup folder. It's that easy. And with everything backed up, let's talk. Go ahead and open up the vehicles folder. And as you can see, many things count as vehicles. So to get rid of some confusion, I'm going to briefly explain the logic behind this cursed folder. In the vehicles folder, you will find all spawnable objects in BeamNG. These are most notably the actual vehicles, but also other props, such as ball. But we're going to ignore those for today. Something weird about the vehicles folder is the naming scheme. If you're a first timer, you may find it hard to get to the car you're looking for. Or not. Basically, there are three main ways cars are named in this folder. Some cars, such as the Civetta Bolide, are called by their model name, so that would be Bolide. Others are named after their brand, like the Autobello Piccolina, which is called Autobello. And then there's the cars named after the category of vehicles they belong to. For example, the Bishukovit is simply called Hatch. Finally, there's a vehicle that is not an actual vehicle. The common folder. To put it simply, there are some cars that have all their parts in their own zip folder, but there's also other cars that share parts with other cars. For example, the Ibishu Pigeon shares some of its parts, such as the engine, with the Ibishu Widgeon, and those shared parts are in the common folder. And now, you should be all set for the... Okay, so if you skip to here, good luck man. But for everyone else, let us finally begin with the hacking. As previously mentioned, we will be doing the funny on the pigeon. And to start, we will be giving it an ever so slight increase in power. To do that, we will need to edit the engine file. But since the pigeon shares some parts with the widgeon, including the engine, that file is not in pigeon.zip, but it is in common.zip. So open it up, click on these random ass folders, and you should now see this. To get to the engine, open up the pigeon folder, and finally, we have reached the JBeams, which are the files we will be editing. To make navigation easier, I recommend you order the files by type and also set Notepad++ as your default application to open JBeams. As you can see, there are two engines, a 0.7 litre inline 3 and a 1.3 litre inline 4. I find the small engine to be the funniest, so let's open that boy up simply by double clicking on it. Note that double clicking only works if you have set a default app for JBeams. Otherwise, you will have to drag the file on the desktop, right click and select edit with Notepad++. Okay, so don't panic, this may seem hard, but really, it isn't. So funnily enough, the file name says that the engine is 660cc, while here it says that it's 550. To be honest, both names are pretty lame, so let us fix that by giving it a new one. Now it is time to add power, and this is where we do that. On the left you have the RPM values, while on the right you have the torque corresponding to the RPM. So let us begin by multiplying the torque values by 10. If there's a decimal point, remove it, and if there isn't, add a 0. The matrix should now look like this, and the pigeon should now be sitting at around 500 horsepower. To fix that, just add an extra 0 to all the torque values, which should now have us at 5,000 horsepower. With the power sorted, I think we can also get away with a couple more rotations per minute. To do that, simply replace the 1 in 10,000 RPM with a 2, and voila, 20,000 RPM. Unfortunately, it is not that easy, but it isn't hard either. Scroll down and set the max RPM to 20,000, and since we're already here, let's make this boy idle at 5,000. This still isn't enough to get the full fat 20,000 RPM, as the ECU won't allow it. So to fix that, scroll down to the Pigeon i3 ECU race, and where it says $rev limiter RPM, replace the last number, which is 7,500 in this case, with your desired maximum RPM, which we want at 20,000. And with this sorted, let's scroll back up. Here you can find the exhaust. For some reason, the Pigeon is kinda broken in this version, and these numbers don't really do anything, but all the other cars do. Particulate determines how much smoke comes out of the exhaust. Instant after determines the chances of flames coming out of the exhaust after revving, and sustained determines for how much time the flames keep flaming. Anyways, as for cooling, I would have once told you to beefing up the radiator and shit like that, but unfortunately, a few updates ago, the devs changed something, and now that shit doesn't work anymore. Don't worry, I have a very easy fix. You see where it says thermals enabled? Set that to false. And with that, the cooling is fully sorted. But this alone won't stop our engine from initiating nuclear fusion. To fix that, simply add 5 zeros to all of the variables under engine durability. And now, the engine is made out of the finest Obamium alloy, and thus, it is fully sorted. With that, we are done with the engine. There are quite a few extra things you could do, such as making it sound like a fucking or making it weigh as much as your mum, but I'll let you figure that out for yourself. Anyways, press Ctrl S to save the edited JBeam, close Notepad++, and you should now get this stupid prompt, to which you'll say yes. If you opened the JBeam from your desktop, first of all, shame, but secondly, you won't receive this prompt. Instead, you'll have to drag the modified JBeam and drop it alongside the other ones. And then you'll get this other stupid prompt, to which you'll just say, okay. The engine is now officially done. The problem is the rest of the Pigeon. We actually have only two main problems, the gearing and the driveshaft. Let's begin with making this boy capable of exceeding 150 km per hour by adjusting the final drive. For more flexibility and ease of tuning, I always swap in a race adjustable final drive when I'm building insanely fast cars. But we don't necessarily need to edit its JBeam. In my experience, the default race transmissions combined with the adjustable final drives are usually more than enough if you tune them in game. Just remember to actually swap them in your builds. Now, get ready to fix the actual problem, the driveshaft. So this is what happens if we keep the stock driveshaft. So to fix that, we will need to beefing it up. But where is the driveshaft? Well, as you can clearly see, not here. To get to the driveshaft, go back in the vehicles folder and open pigeon.zip. Here, you will want to open up Pigeon Differential Rear. Scroll down to Pigeon Driveshaft Rear, and under Beams, remove a few zeros from the Beam Deform and add some to the Beam Strength. Remember to save, and just like that, you have made your driveshaft unbreakable. And this is pretty much it. But to see if it actually worked, let's do some. So here we are in grid map, and we're about to witness a truly spectacular series of events. Just by looking at the tachometer, we can clearly see that something happened. By the way, if you're having trouble spawning in, you may have f***ed up along the way. Luckily, you made a backup. Right? Before launching this car thing, let's not forget that we need to install the adjustable final drive. So open up the vehicle configurator, scroll down, say hello to your mum, and finally install it. To tune it, go to the tuning section and you can set it to whatever you want if you're feeling jazzy. But to play it safe, I'm gonna set it to a 3:1 ratio. That is because we're running 20,000 RPM. If you have more realistic numbers, a 2:1 ratio should be good. Finally, if you want to check the power, just add the Torque Curve UI app. And after all this work, it is finally time to launch. Holy. So people, I hope this helped, and on a final note, if you had fun doing this, I strongly suggest you mess around with JBeams yourself. I began doing this a couple of years after having bought BeamNG, and I immediately discovered a whole new way of having fun with the game, and I still love doing it to this day. Anyways, that was all, and now I gotta shit.